it please the tribunal, it is my duty to present that part of count 2 which relates to the allegations with regard to Belgium, the Netherlands, and Luxembourg. In charges 2, 3, and 4, 9, 11, 13, 14, 18, 19, and 23, there are charges of violating certain treaties and conventions and violating certain assurances. So far as the treaties are concerned, some of them have been put in evidence already, and I will indicate that when I come to deal with that. May I, before I come to the detail, remind the tribunal of the history of these unfortunate countries, the Netherlands and Belgium. Belgium especially, who for so many centuries was the cockpit of Europe. The independence of Belgium was guaranteed, as the tribunal will remember, in 1839 by the great European powers. That guarantee was observed for 75 years, when it was shamelessly broken by the Germans in 1914, who brought all the horrors of war to Belgium and all the even greater horrors of a German occupation of Belgium. And history was to repeat itself in a still more shocking fashion some 25 years afterwards, in 1940, as the tribunal already knows. The first treaty which was mentioned in these charges is the Hague Conventions of 1907. My lords, they have been put in by my learned friend Sir David, and I think I need say nothing about them at all. My lord, the second treaty is the Locarno Convention, Arbitration and Conciliation Convention of 1935. My lord, that was between Germany and Belgium. That was put in by Sir David. It is GB 15, and I think I need say nothing more about that. Belgium's independence and neutrality was guaranteed by Germany in that document. And my lords, the next treaty is the Hague Arbitration Convention of May 1926 between Germany and the Netherlands. That document I ought formally to put in. It is in the Reichsgesetzblatt, which perhaps I may call RGB in future for brevity, and it no doubt will be treated as a public document, but in my bundle of documents, which goes in the order in which I propose to refer to them, I think it's more convenient for the presentation of my case. That is the second or third document, TC 16. It
Book 4, is it?
That's Book 4, my lord. This is the Hague, the Convention of Arbitration and Conciliation between Germany and the Netherlands, signed at The Hague in May 1926. If your lordships have the document, perhaps I need only read Article 1. The contracting parties, those are the Netherlands and the German Reich, undertake to submit all disputes of any nature whatever which may arise between them, which it has not been possible to settle by diplomacy, and which haven't been referred to the Permanent Court of International Justice, to be dealt with by arbitration or conciliation as provided. And then, my lords, there follow all the clauses which deal merely with the machinery of conciliation, which it's unnecessary for me to read. And may I just draw attention to the last article, Article 21, and which provides that the convention shall be valid for 10 years and then to remain in force for successive periods of 5 years until denounced by either party. And this treaty never was denounced by Germany at all. Then the next treaty, I put that document in, TC 16, which will be GB 97, and a certified copy is put in and a translation for the court. As the tribunal already knows, in 1928, the Kellogg-Briand Pact was made at Paris, by which all the powers renounced recourse to war. That is put in as GB 18, and I needn't, I think, put it in or refer to it again. Then the last treaty, all of which, of course, belong to the days of the Weimar Republic, is the arbitration treaty between Germany and Luxembourg, executed in 1929. And that is document TC 20 in the bundle. It is 2 documents further on than the one that the tribunal has last referred to. TC 20 on the right hand top corner. That is the Treaty of Arbitration and Conciliation between Germany and Luxembourg, signed at Geneva in 1929. And may I just read the first few words of Article 1, which are familiar. The contracting parties undertake to settle by peaceful means all disputes of any nature whatever which may arise between them and which it may not be possible to settle by diplomacy. And then there follow the clauses the machinery dealing with the machinery for peaceful settlement of disputes which follow the common fall. My Lords, those were the treaty obligations. My Lord, I'm much obliged to my friend Mr. Captain Gordon. May I put in that last treaty, TC20, which will be GB98? My Lords, those were the treaty obligations between Germany and Belgium at the time when the Nazi Party came into power in 1933. And as you've heard from my learned friends, Hitler adopted and ratified the obligations of Germany under the Weimar Republic with regard to the treaties which had been entered into. My Lord, nothing more occurred to alter the position of Belgium until March 1936. Germany reoccupied the Rhineland, announced, of course, the resumption of conscription, and so on. And Hitler, on the 7th of March 1936, purported in a speech to repudiate the obligations of the German government under the Locarno Pact, the reason being given the execution of the Franco-Soviet Pact of 1935. Sir David has dealt with that and has pointed out that there was no legal foundation for this claim to be entitled to renounce his obligations under the Locarno Pact. But Belgium was, of course, left in the air in the sense that it had entered itself into various obligations under the Locarno Pact in return for the liabilities which other nations acknowledge. And now one of those liabilities, namely the liability of Germany to observe the pact, had been renounced. My Lord, and so on the 30th of January 1937, perhaps because Hitler realized the position of Belgium and of the Netherlands, that Hitler, in the next document in the bundle, TC 33 and 35, which I hand in and will be GB 99, gave a solemn assurance, and he used the word solemn, to Belgium and to the Netherlands. That has already been read by the Attorney General, and so I don't want to read it again. But the tribunal will see that it is a full guarantee. In April of 1937, in a document which is not before the court, France and England released Belgium from her obligations under the Locarno Pact. It is a matter of history, and it does occur in an exhibit, but it hasn't been copied. Belgium, of course, gave guarantees of strict independence and neutrality, and France and England gave guarantees of assistance should Belgium be attacked. And it was because of that that Germany, on the 13th of October 1937, the next document, give a very clear and unconditional guarantee to Belgium. Document TC34, which I offer in evidence as Exhibit GB 100. German Declaration of the 13th of October 1937. Monsieur le Ministre, I have the honor on behalf of the German government to make the following communication to Your Excellency. The German government has taken cognizance with particular interest of the public declarations in which the Belgian government defines the international position of Belgium. For its part, it has repeatedly given expressions, especially through the declaration of the Chancellor of the German Reich in his speech of January the 30th, 1937, to its own point of view. The German government has also taken cognizance of the declaration made by the British and French governments on the 24th April 1937. That is the document to which I had previously referred. Since the conclusion of a treaty to replace
Mr. Roberts, when you're reading a document to which you attach importance, would you go a little bit slower?
I certainly will, yes. A little bit slower or faster?
Slower.
In
In the documents you attach great importance to.
Yeah, I much appreciate. Since the conclusion of a treaty to replace the Treaty of Locarno may still take some time, and being desirous of strengthening the peaceful aspirations of the two countries, the German government regards it as appropriate to define now its own attitude towards Belgium. To this end, it makes the following declaration. First, the German government has taken note of the views which the Belgian government has thought fit to express. That is to say, A, of the policy of independence which it intends to exercise in full sovereignty. B, of its determination to defend the frontiers of Belgium with all its forces against any aggression or invasion, and to prevent Belgian territory from being used for purposes of aggression against another state as a passage or as a base of operations by land, by sea, or in the air, and to organize the defense of Belgium in an efficient manner for this purpose. 2, the German government considers that the inviolability and integrity of Belgium are common interests of the Western powers, It confirms its determination that in no circumstances will it impair this inviolability and integrity, and that it will at all times respect Belgian territory, except, of course, in the event of Belgium's taking part in a military action directed against Germany in an armed conflict in which Germany is involved. The German government, like the British and French government, is prepared to assist Belgium should she be subjected to an attack or to invasion. And then on the following page, the Belgian government has taken note with great satisfaction of the declaration communicated to it this day by the German government. It thanks the German government warmly for this communication. Lords, may I pause there to emphasize that document? There, in October of 1937, is Germany giving a solemn guarantee to this small nation of its peaceful aspirations towards her and its assertion that the integrity of the Belgian frontier was a common interest between her and Belgium and the other Western powers. You have before you to try the leaders of the German government and the leaders of the German armed forces. One doesn't have to prove, does one, that every one of those accused must have known perfectly well of that solemn undertaking given by its government. Every one of these accused, in their various spheres of activity, some more active than the other, were a party to the shameless breaking of that treaty 18 months afterwards. And I submit that on the ordinary laws of inference and justice, all those men must be fixed as active participators in that disgraceful breach of faith which brought misery and death to so many millions. Presumably, it will be contended on the part, for instance, of Keitel and Jodl, that they were merely honorable soldiers carrying out their duty. This tribunal, no doubt, will inquire what code of honor they observe which permits them to violate the pledged word of their country. At this declaration of October 1937 meant very little to the leaders and to the High Command of Germany can be seen by the next document, which is document PS 375 in the bundle. It is already an exhibit USA 84 and has been referred to many times already. May I just refer or remind the tribunal of one sentence or two. The document comes into existence on the 24th of August, 1938, at the time when the Czech drama, the Czechoslovakia drama, was unfolding, and it was uncertain at that time whether there would be war with the Western powers. And this top secret, addressed to the General Staff of the 5th Section of the German Air Force, and the subject, Extended Case Green, estimate of the situation, probably the more correct word would be appreciation of the situation with special consideration of the enemy. Apparently, some staff officer had been asked to prepare this appreciation. In view of the fact that it has been read before, I think I need only read the last paragraph of all, which is paragraph number H, and it comes at the bottom of page 6, the last page but one of the document. Now, H requests to Armed Forces, Supreme Command, Army and Navy. This, you see, is an appreciation addressed by an Air Force staff officer. And so these are requests to the Army and Navy. And then if one turns over the page, number 4, Belgium and the Netherlands would, in German hands, represent an extraordinary advantage in the prosecution of the air war against Great Britain as well as against France. Therefore, it is held to be essential to obtain the opinion of the Army as to the conditions under which an occupation of this area could be carried out and how long it would take. In this case, it would be necessary to reassess the commitment against Great Britain. The point that the prosecution desire to make on that document is that it is apparently assumed by the staff officer who prepared this, and assumed quite rightly, that the leaders of the German nation, the High Command, would not pay the smallest attention to the fact that Germany had given her word not to invade Holland or Belgium. They are recommending it as a military advantageous thing to do. Strong in the knowledge that if the commanders and the Führer agrees with that view, treaties are to be completely ignored. Such, I repeat, was the honor of the German government and of its leaders. Now, in March of 1939, as has been proved, the remainder of Czechoslovakia was peacefully annexed. And then there came the time for further guarantees. And the next document are the assurances, TC 30, 35, and 39, which were given to Belgium and the Netherlands on the 28th of April, 1939. Now, those have been read by my learned friend, Mr. Elwyn Jones. They bear number GB 78. I need not read them again. There is also a guarantee to Luxembourg, which is on the next page, 42. Now, that was given in the same speech by Hitler in the Reichstag. And this 42A was where the Führer, Hitler, was dealing with a communication from Mr. Roosevelt, who was feeling a little uneasy on the other side of the Atlantic as to Hitler's intention. And may I preface, before I read this document, may I say that I believe the tribunal will be seeing a film of the delivery by Hitler of this part of this speech. And you will have the privilege of seeing Hitler in one of his jocular moves, because this was greeted and was delivered in a jocular vein. And you will see in the film that the defendant Göring, who sits above Hitler in the Reichstag, appreciates very much the joke being this, that it is an absurd suggestion to make that Germany could possibly go to war with any of its neighbors. And that was the point of the joke, which everybody appears to have appreciated very much. Now, may I read this document? Finally, Mr. Roosevelt demands the readiness to give him an assurance that the German fighting forces will not attack the territory or possessions of the following independent nations, and above all, that they will not march into them. And he goes on to name the following as the countries in question: Finland, Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, Norway, Sweden, Denmark, Holland, Belgium, Great Britain, Ireland, France, Portugal, Spain, Switzerland, Liechtenstein, Luxembourg, Poland, Hungary, Romania, Yugoslavia, Russia, Bulgaria, Turkey, Iraq, Arabia, Syria, Palestine, Egypt, and Iran. Answer: I started off by taking the trouble to find out, in the case of the countries listed, firstly, whether they feel themselves threatened, and secondly, and particularly, whether this question Mr. Roosevelt has asked us was put as a result of a démarche by them, or at least with their consent. The answer was a general negative, which in some cases took the form of a blunt rejection. Actually, this counter-question of mine could not be conveyed to some of the states and nations listed, since they are not at present in possession of their liberty, as for instance Syria, but are occupied by the military forces of democratic states and therefore were deprived of all their rights. Thirdly, apart from that, all the states bordering on Germany have received much more binding assurances and above all much more binding proposals than Mr. Roosevelt asked of me in his peculiar telegram. You will see that although that is sneering at Mr. Roosevelt, it is suggesting, in the presence of, certainly of the accused Goring, as being quite absurd that Germany should nurture any warlike feelings against its neighbor. But the hollow falsity of that and the preceding guarantee is shown by the next document. I'm much obliged. May I put in 42A, GB 101? Thank you very much. The next document, which is Hitler's conference of the 23rd of May. Now that has been referred to many times and is marked USA 27. And therefore I need only very shortly remind the tribunal of perhaps two passages. First of all, on the first page, it's interesting to see who was present. The Führer, Goering, Admiral Raeder, Brauchitsch, Colonel General Keitel, and various others who are not accused. Colonel Barlimont is there. He, I understand, was Jodel's deputy. Well, now, the purpose of the conference was an analysis of the situation. Then may I refer to the third page, down at the bottom, the stencil number is 819. What will this struggle be like? And then those words, the Dutch and Belgian air bases must be occupied by armed force. Declarations of neutrality must be ignored. And then at the bottom, therefore, if England intends to intervene in the Polish war, we must occupy Holland with lightning speed. We must aim at securing a new defense line on Dutch soil up to the Zuider Zee. Now there is that decision made. Declarations of neutrality must be ignored. And there is the Grand Admiral present. And there is the Air Minister and Chief of the German Air Force. And there is General Keitel present. They all appear, and all their subsequent actions show that they acquiesce in that. That to give your word and then break it, that is their code of honor. And you will see that at the end of the meeting, on the very last page, the stencil number is 823, Field Marshal Goering asked one or two questions which were duly answered. Well, there was the decision. 23rd of May. Is it overstating the matter to submit that any syllable of guarantee Any assurance given after that is just pure hypocrisy, is just the action, apart from the multiplicity of the crimes here, of the common criminal.
Mr. Roberts, I think the tribunal would like you, as far as possible, to confine yourself to the document.
If your Lordship, please. Your Lordship, please. My Lord, then we go to the 22nd of August, 798 PS. That has already been put in and is USA 29. My Lord, that was Hitler's speech on the 22nd of August. It has been read and reread. I only, my lords, refer to one passage, and that's at the bottom of the second page. Attack from the west, from the Maginot Line. I consider this impossible. Another possibility is a violation of Dutch, Belgium, and Swiss neutrality. I have no doubt that all these states, as well as Scandinavia, will defend their neutrality by all available means. My lords, I desire to emphasize the next sentence. England and France will not violate the neutrality of those countries. Lord, I don't desire to comment. I ask your lordships to bear that sentence in mind. That correct prophecy, when remembering the excuses which were given for the subsequent invasion of Holland and Belgium and the Netherlands and Belgium. Lord, the next documents are TC 36, 40, and 42. Lord, those are three assurances. 36 by the ambassador of Germany to the Belgian government. In view of the gravity of the international situation, I'm expressly instructed by the head of the German Reich to transmit to your Majesty the following communication. Though the German government is doing at present everything in its power to arrive at a peaceful solution, your lordships know how true that is, of the questions at issue between the Reich and Poland. It nevertheless desires to define clearly here and now the attitude which it proposes to adopt towards Belgium should a conflict in Europe become inevitable. The German government is firmly determined to abide by the terms of the declaration contained in the German note of October the 13th, 1937. This provides, in effect, that Germany will in no circumstances impair the inviolability and integrity of Belgium and will at all times respect Belgian territory. The German government renews this undertaking. However, in the expectation that the Belgian government, for its part, will observe an attitude of strict neutrality and that Belgium will tolerate no violation on the part of a third power, but that on the contrary, she will oppose it with all the forces at her disposal. It goes without saying that if the Belgian government were to adopt a different attitude, the German government would naturally be compelled to defend its interest in conformity with the new situation thus created. My Lord, may I make one short comment on the last part of that document? I submit it's clear that the decision having been made to violate the neutrality as we know, those last words were put in to afford some excuse in the future. That document will be GB 102. My Lord, TC 40, the next document, is a similar document communicated to Her Majesty the Queen of the Netherlands on the same day, 26th of August 1939. Subject to the Tribunal's direction, I don't think I need read it. It is a public document in the German document book, and it has exactly the same features. That will be 103 GB. Then, my Lords, C42, the next document, is a similar document to Luxembourg. That's dated the 26th of August, the same day. I'm not certain. It has two dates. I think it's 26th of August in Europe. My Lords, that is in the same terms, complete guarantee with the sting in the tail as in the other two documents. Perhaps I needn't read them. My Lords, as the Tribunal knows, Poland was occupied by means of the lightning victory, and in October, German armed forces were free for other tasks. Lord, the first step that was taken so far as the Netherlands and Belgium is concerned is shown by the next document, which is, I think, in as GB 80, but the two central portions refer to Belgium and the Netherlands. It's the next document in your Lordship's bundle, number 4.
TC 32?
Yes, it begins TC 32. Then if you go down to the next one, your Lordship will see TC 37 on the same page. And then TC 41. My Lord, this is GB 80, it's already in. But 37 and 41 refer to this matter. Now, this is a German assurance on the 6th of October, 1931. Belgium. Immediately after I had taken over the affairs of the state, I tried to create friendly relations with Belgium. I renounced any revision or any desire for revision. The Reich has not made any demands which would in any way be likely to be considered in Belgium as a threat. My Lord, there is a similar assurance to the Netherlands, the next part of the document. The new Reich has endeavored to continue the traditional friendship with the Netherlands. It has not taken over any existing differences between the two countries and has not created any new one. Well, I submit it is impossible to overemphasize the importance of those assurances of Germany's good faith. My Lord, the value of that good faith is shown by the next document, which is the very next day, 7th of October. Those two guarantees were the 6th of October. Now we come to 2329 PS, dated the 7th of October. It's from the Commander-in-Chief of the Army, von Brauchitsch, and it's addressed to his army groups. He said the third paragraph, the Dutch border between Ems and Rhine is to be observed only. At the same time, Army Group B has to make all preparation according to special orders for immediate invasion of Dutch and Belgian territory if the political situation so demands. If the political situation so demands. The day after the guarantee. And it's quite clear from the next document, I put in the last document, that's an original typewritten signature of von Brauchitsch, and it'll be GB 105. My Lord, the next document is in two parts. It's both are numbered C62. The first part is dated the 9th of October 1939, 2 days after the document I've read. My Lord, that was all read by the Attorney General in opening. It was read down to the bottom of paragraph B. Therefore, I won't read it again. May I remind the tribunal just of one sentence. Preparations should be made for offensive action on the northern flank of the Western Front, crossing the area of Luxembourg, Belgium, and the Netherlands. This attack must be carried out as soon and forcefully as possible. And in the next paragraph, may I just read 6 words. The object of this attack is to acquire as great an area of Holland, Belgium, and northern France as possible. That document is signed by Hitler himself. It is addressed to the 3 accused, Supreme Command of the Army, Keitel, Navy Raider, Air Minister, Commander-in-Chief of the Air Force, Goring. That appears from the distribution. I'll hold that document and I'll put the other one in with it. My Lord, the next document is 15th of October, 1939. It's from the Supreme Command of the Armies. It's signed by Keitel in his, what is to some of us, his familiar red pencil signature. And it is again addressed to Raider and to Goring and to the General Staff of the Army. Now that also has been read by the Attorney General. But may I just remind the Tribunal at the bottom of the page must be the object of the Army's preparations to occupy, on receipt of a special order, the territory of Holland in the first instance as far as the Grebbe-Mars or Meuse line. The second paragraph deals with the taking possession of the West Frisian Islands. It is clear, my submission beyond discussion, that from that moment, the decision to violate the neutrality of these three countries had been made. All that remained was to work out the details, to wait until the weather became favorable, and in the meantime, to give no hint that Germany's word was about to be broken again. Otherwise, these small countries might have had some chance of combining with themselves and their neighbors. It'll be GB 106. Well, the next document is a Keitel directive. It's PS 440. It is again sent to the Supreme Command of the Army, the Navy, and the Air Force, and it gives details of how the attack is to be carried out. I want to read only a very few selected passages. Paragraph 2 on the first page. Contrary to previously issued instruction, all action intended against Holland may be carried out without a special order when the general attack will start. The attitude of Dutch armed forces cannot be anticipated ahead of time. And then, may I comment here, would your lordships note this as a German concession? Wherever there is no resistance, the entry should carry the character of a peaceful occupation. Then paragraph B of the next paragraph. At first, the Dutch area, including the West Frisian Islands, is to be occupied up to the Grebbe-Mars line. The next two paragraphs, I needn't read them, deal with action against the Belgian harbors, and in paragraph 5, the 7th Airborne Division, they were parachutists, will be committed for the airborne operation after the possession of bridges across the Albert Canal, which is in Belgium, as the court knows. And then paragraph 6b, Luxembourg is mentioned. It's mentioned in paragraph 5 as well. The signature is Keitel, but that is typed. It's authenticated by a staff officer. Well, the following, is that document in 107, GB thing?
GB 107?
107, my lord. My Lord, then there's the next document is C number 10, and it's dated the 28th of November 1939. My Lord, that is a signature of Keitel's in his red pencil, and it's addressed to the Army, Navy, and Air Force. My Lord, it deals with whether there should be a quick breakthrough. If the quick breakthrough should fail north of Liège, it really, my Lord, I think machinery only for carrying out the attack. Paragraph 2 shows clearly the Netherlands is to be violated, the occupation of Walcheren Island, thereby Flushing, taking of one or more of the Meuse crossings between Namur and Dinant. My Lord, the documents show that from November until, that'll be 108. Documents show that from November until March of 1940, the High Command and the Führer were waiting for favorable weather before A-Day, as they called it. That was the attack on Luxembourg, Belgium, and the Netherlands. My Lord, the next document, C-72, those are 18 documents which range in date from the 7th of November until the 9th of May, 1940. They are all signed, and I put in the originals. I think they're photostats I put in. Certified photostats, but they're all signed either by Keitel personally or by Jodl personally. And I don't think it's necessary for me to read them. The defense, I think, have all had copies of them. But they show that successively A-Day is being postponed for about a week, having regard to the weather reports and so on. It'll be GB 109. My Lord, on the 10th of January, 1940, as the Attorney General informed the tribunal, a German aeroplane made a forced landing in Belgium. The occupants endeavored to burn the orders of which they were in possession, but they were only partially successful, and the next document, Exhibit 58A, I think it's called, DB 110, I offer it as.
TC 58A.
Yes. Oh, TC, I beg your lordship's pardon, yes. TC, I beg your lordship's pardon. Well, that is the original is a photostat, certified by the Belgian government, who, of course, came in possession of the original. My Lord, I can summarize it. They are orders to the commander of the 2nd Army Group, I think, Air Force Group, Luftflotte, 2nd Air Force Fleet, clearly for offensive action against France, Holland, and Belgium. If one looks at the bottom of the first page, it deals with the disposition of the Belgian army. The Belgian army covers the Liège-Antwerp line with its main force, lighter forces in front of the Meuse-Scheldt Canal. Then it deals with the dispositions of the Dutch army. And then if you turn over the page, number 3, you see the German Western Army directs its attack between the North Sea and the Moselle with the strongest possible air force support through the Belge-Luxembourg region. Well, I think I need read no more. The rest are operational details as to the bombing of the various targets in Belgium and in Holland. My Lord, the next document I think is rather out of place for my purpose. My learned friend Mr. Emryn Jones put in Jodel's diary, which is GB 88, and I desire to refer very, very briefly to some extracts which are printed first in bundle number 4. If one looks at the entry for 1st of February 1940, and then some lines down.
1809 PS. 1809 PS.
Yes, that's right, my Lord. And GB 88 it is. Much
yes,
obliged.
but you see, we haven't got the GB numbers on the document.
I'm very sorry, my Lord. It was my mistake.
1st of February 1940, yes?
Yes, and if your Lordship will look about 8 lines down, 1700 hours, General Jashoni. And then first, behavior of parachute units. In front of The Hague, they have to be strong enough to break in, if necessary, by sheer brute force. The 7th Division intends to drop units near the town. 2, political mission contrasts to some extent with violent action against the Dutch Air Force. My Lord, I think the rest I needn't read its operational details. 2nd of February, I only refer again to Jodel's entry under A as to landings can be made in the center of The Hague.
Which date?
That was 2nd of February, my Lord, the bottom of the same page.
Yes, I see.
Under A. I was endeavoring not to read
Yes, it's quite right.
more than a word or two. Then if your Lordship would turn over the page, I omit February the 5th, 26th of February. Führer raises a question whether it is better to undertake the Weser exercise before or after Case Yellow. And then on the 3rd of March, the last sentence, Führer decides to carry out Weser exercise before Case Yellow with a few days interval. And then, my Lord, there is an entry I desire to call your Lordship's attention to on May the 8th. It's 2 days before the invasion. Top of the page. Alarming news from Holland. cancelling of furloughs, evacuations, roadblocks, other mobilization methods. According to reports of the intelligence service, the British have asked for permission to march in, but the Dutch have refused. Lord, may I make two short comments on that? The first is that the Germans are rather objective, because the Dutch are actually making some preparations to resist their invasion. Alarming news, they say, wrote. Second point, Jodl is there recording that the Dutch are, according to their intelligence reports, the Dutch are still adhering properly to their neutrality. Lord, I needn't read any more of the diary extract. My Lord, that is the story, except for the documents which were presented to Holland and to Belgium and to Luxembourg after the invasion was a fait accompli. Because as history now knows, at 4:30 a.m. on the 10th of May, these three small countries were violently invaded with all the fury of modern warfare. No warning was given to them by Germany. No complaint was made by Germany of any breaches of any neutrality before this action was taken.
Perhaps that'd be a convenient time to break off.
Lordship, please.
2 o'clock.
Lordship, please. And please, at the funeral, when the court adjourned, I had just come to the point at 4:30 a.m. on the 10th of May, 1940, when the Germans invaded these three small countries without any warning. An invasion which the prosecution submit, it is clear from the documents, had been planned and decided upon months before. My Lords, before I close this part of the case, may I refer to three documents in conclusion. My Lord, the invasions having taken place at 4:30 in the morning, in each of the three countries, the German ambassadors called upon representatives of the three governments some hours later and handed in a document which was similar in each case and which is described as a memorandum or an ultimatum. My Lord, an account of what happened in Belgium is set out in document TC 58, which is about 5 documents from the end of the bundle. Let's see. It's headed Extract from Belgium.
TC 58?
TC 58, my Lord. It's in The stencil number at the bottom is 2055. Lord, it's after that document Your Lordship, I think, was looking at, just after the captured Air Force order.
Yes.
My Lord, this is an extract from the official Belgian account of what happened in 1939 and 1940, and I hand in an original copy certified by the Belgian government, which is GB 111. My Lord, might I read short extracts? If I read the third paragraph, from 4:30 a.m., information was received which left no shadow of doubt. The hour had struck. Aircraft were first reported in the east. At 5 o'clock came news of the bombing of 2 Netherlands aerodromes, the violation of the Belgian border, the landing of German soldiers at Eben-Emael fort, the bombing of the Jemel station. Lord, then I think I can go to 2 paragraphs lower down. At 8:30 a.m., the German ambassador came to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. When he entered the minister's room, he began to take a paper from his pocket. Mr. Spark, that is the German minister, stopped him, the Belgian minister. I beg your pardon, Mr. Ambassador. I will speak first. And in an indignant voice, he read the Belgian government's protest. Mr. Ambassador, the German army has just, this is the second time in 25 years that Germany has committed a criminal aggression against a neutral and loyal Belgium. What has just happened is perhaps even more odious than the aggression of 1914. No ultimatum, no note, no protest of any kind has ever been placed before the German government, the Belgian government. It is through the attack itself that Belgium has learnt that Germany has violated the undertakings given by her on October the 13th, 1937, and renewed spontaneously at the beginning of the war. The act of aggression committed by Germany, for which there is no justification whatever, will deeply shock the conscience of the world. The German Reich will be held responsible by history. Belgium is resolved to defend herself. Her cause, which is the cause of right, cannot be vanquished. And then, Lord, I think I omit the next paragraph. The ambassador read the note, and in the last paragraph, in the middle of this communication, Mr. Spark, who had by his side the Secretary General, interrupted the ambassador. "Hand me the document," he said. "I should like to spare you so painful a task." After studying the note, Mr. Spark confined himself to pointing out that he had already replied by the protest he had just made.
The tribunal would like you to read what the ambassador read, too.
Lord, I'm sorry. Perhaps I omitted that wrongly. I was thinking of the next document I was going to read. My Lord, I read the last paragraph on the first page. The ambassador was then able to read the note he had brought. I am instructed by the government of the Reich, he said, to make the following declaration. In order to forestall the invasion of Belgium, Holland and Luxembourg, for which Great Britain and France have been making preparations, clearly aimed at Germany, the government of the Reich is compelled to ensure the neutrality of the three countries by means of arms. For this purpose, the government of the Reich will bring up an armed force of the greatest size so that resistance of any kind will be useless. The government of the Reich guarantees Belgium's European and colonial territory as well as her dynasty on condition that no resistance is offered. Should there be any resistance, Belgium will risk the destruction of her country and the loss of her independence. It is therefore in the interests of Belgium that the population be called upon to cease all resistance and that the authorities be given the necessary instructions to make contact with the German military command. My Lord, the so-called ultimatum handed in some hours after the invasion had started is document TC 57, which is the last document but 3 in the bundle. Lord, it's a document which is in DDDP, the documenter. I hand it in and it becomes GB 112. My Lord, it's a long document and I will read to the tribunal such parts as the tribunal think right. The Reich government, it begins, has for a long time had no doubts as to what was the chief aim of British and French war policy. It consists in the spreading of the war to other countries and of the misuse of their peoples as auxiliary and mercenary troops for England and France. The last attempt of this sort was the plan to occupy Scandinavia with the help of Norway in order to set up a new front against Germany in this region. It was only Germany's last-minute action which upset this project. Germany has furnished documentary evidence of this before the eyes of the world. Immediately after the British-French action in Scandinavia, immediately after it miscarried, I ought to have read, England and France took up their policy of war expansion in another direction. In this respect, while the retreat from Norway was still going on, the English Prime Minister announced, as a result of the altered situation in Scandinavia, England was once more in a position to go ahead with the transfer of the full weight of her navy to the Mediterranean, and that English and French units were already on the way to Alexandria. The Mediterranean now became the center of English-French war propaganda. This was partly to gloss over the Scandinavian defeat and the big loss of prestige before their own people and before the world, and partly to make it appear that the Balkans had been chosen for the next theater of war against Germany. In reality, however, this apparent shifting to the Mediterranean of English-French war policy had quite another purpose. It was nothing but a diversion maneuver in grand style to deceive Germany as to the direction of the next English-French attack. For, as the Reich government has long been aware, the true aim of England and France is the carefully prepared and now immediately imminent attack on Germany in the West, so as to advance through Belgium and Holland to the region of the Ruhr. Germany has recognized and respected the inviolability of Belgium and Holland, it being, of course, understood that these two countries, in the event of a war of Germany against England and France, would maintain the strictest neutrality. Belgium and the Netherlands have not fulfilled this condition.
Mr. Roberts, do you think it's necessary to read this in full?
No, my Lord, I don't. I was going to summarize, my Lord, the charges. If your Lordship would be good enough to look at the bottom of the first page, you will see the so-called ultimatum complains of the hostile expressions in the Belgian and Netherlands press. Then, my Lord, in the second paragraph over the page, there is an allegation of the attempts of the British intelligence to bring a revolution in Germany with the assistance of Belgium and the Netherlands. Then, my Lord, they refer in paragraph 3, reference is made to military preparations of the two countries. And in paragraph 4, it is pointed out that Belgium has fortified the Belgian-German frontier. A complaint is made with regard to Holland in paragraph 5 that British aircraft have flown over the Netherlands country. Look, other charges are made against the neutrality of these two countries, although no instances are given. But I don't think I need refer to anything on page 3 of the document. Page 4, Lord, I would like, if I might, to read the middle paragraph. In this struggle for existence, forced upon the German people by England and France, the Reich government is not disposed to await submissively the attack by England and France and to allow them to carry the war over Belgium and the Netherlands into German territory. And, my Lord, I just emphasize this sentence and then I read no further. It has therefore now issued the command to German troops to ensure the neutrality of these countries by all the military means at the disposal of the Reich. My Lord, it is unnecessary in my submission to emphasize the falsity of that statement. The world now knows that for months preparations had been made to violate the neutrality of these three countries. This document is saying the orders to do so have now been issued. My Lord, a similar document, similar in terms altogether, was handed to the representative of the Netherlands government, and, my Lord, TC 60, you hand it in, that'll be GB 113, is the last document but one in the bundle. My Lord, that is a memorandum to the Luxembourg government, which enclosed with it a copy of the document handed to the governments of Belgium and the Netherlands. My Lord, I only desire to emphasize the second paragraph of TC 60. In defense against the imminent attack, the German troops have now received the order to safeguard the neutrality of these two countries. My Lord, the last document, TC 59, which I formally put in, which will be, one moment. Oh, that, my Lord, is, I'm told GB 111, it is in. My Lord, that is the dignified protest of the Belgian government against the crime which was committed against it. My Lord, those are the facts supporting the charges of the violation of treaties and assurances against these three countries and supporting the allegation of the making of an aggressive war against them. My Lord, in the respectful submission of the prosecution here, the story is a very plain, a very simple one, a story of perfidy, dishonor, and shame.